Dead in the void. The alarm screams echoed through every corridor of the Wandering Fortune as Captain Vex gripped the armrests of his command chair. His four eyes blinked in sequence, trying to process the chaos unfolding on the view screen. Plasma fire streaked past the bridge windows, illuminating the darkness of space with angry orange trails. "Evasive pattern theta," Vex shouted, his vocal sacs inflating with stress. "Get us out of their firing solution." The ship lurched violently to port, throwing crew members against their stations. Sparks erupted from an overhead panel, raining down on the navigation console. Through the viewport, Vex could see three pirate vessels closing in like predators circling wounded prey. Their hulls were covered in mismatched armor plates and stolen weapon systems. Scavengers who made their living preying on independent merchant ships exactly like his. "Captain, the starboard engine just went critical," Lieutenant Kessa shouted from engineering control, her tentacles dancing frantically across her console. "We're venting plasma from the main feed lines. If we don't shut it down now, the reactor will cascade." "Do it," Vex ordered, knowing what that decision meant. "Emergency shutdown on starboard systems." The ship shuddered as half its propulsion went dark. The Wandering Fortune began to drift, its momentum carrying it forward, but without the power to maneuver effectively. On the tactical display, the pirate ships adjusted their approach, sensing the kill. "All hands prepare for emergency jump," Vex commanded, reaching for the hyperspace activation controls. His primary hand hovered over the emergency jump button, the one that would throw them blindly into faster-than-light travel without proper calculations or destination coordinates. It was dangerous, potentially fatal, but better than certain death at the hands of pirates. "Jump drive charging," the helmsman reported, his compound eyes reflecting the amber warning lights. 30 seconds to activation." The pirates opened fire again. The ship rocked as energy bolts slammed into the hull. I heard the distant sound of decompression alarms as, somewhere in the lower decks, the hull was breached. My crew was dying. My ship was dying. 20 seconds, the helmsman counted down. Another impact. The lights flickered. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red. 10 seconds. The tactical display showed one of the pirate ships launching a boarding pod. They wanted the cargo badly enough to take it by force. 5 seconds, 4, 3, "Jump now!" Vex screamed. Reality twisted. The universe folded inside out. Vex felt his three stomachs trying to climb up through his throat as the ship tore through the fabric of space without proper guidance or destination coordinates. The view screen showed nothing but a writhing tunnel of impossible colors and geometries that hurt to perceive. Then, with a violent lurch that threw everyone to the beck, they emerged back into normal space. Silence. Blessed, terrifying silence. Vex slowly pulled himself back into his chair, checking to make sure all his limbs were still attached. Around the bridge, crew members were groaning and picking themselves up. The main lights were out, running only on emergency power. Half the consoles were dead or flickering with error messages. "Status report," Vex said weakly, his voice hoarse. "We're alive," Kessa reported, which seemed like the most important fact, "but we're not in good shape. Starboard engine completely destroyed, port engine offline, might be repairable. Main reactor stable but running at 40% capacity. Hull breaches on decks 3, 5, and 7. We've got them sealed with emergency bulkheads, but those sections are vented to space." "Casualties?" "Miraculously none dead. Technician Harrell has severe burns from void exposure. Engineer Pren has 2 broken arms. Medical bay is handling them." Vex allowed himself one moment to feel grateful that his crew had survived. Then he pushed that emotion aside and focused on their new problem. "Where are we?" The navigation officer, a young Korthan named Zeeb, stared at his console with all 3 of his eye stalks. "Unknown, Captain. The emergency jump threw us completely off the charts. We're not in any registered system. I'm trying to triangulate our position using stellar cartography, but none of the star patterns match anything in the database." "Sensor sweep. Tell me what's around us." "Working on it, sir. Half our sensor array was damaged in the fight, but I'm getting readings." He paused, his eye stalks stowing rigid with surprise. "Captain, you need to see this." Vex moved to the sensor station, looking over Zeeb's shoulder at the display. What he saw made his blood run cold, then hot with a different kind of fear. They were surrounded by debris. Not just any debris, but thousands upon thousands of pieces of wrecked starships. The sensor readings showed everything from small fighter craft to massive capital ships, all broken and dead, floating in an orbital graveyard around a dim red star. "How many ships?" Vex asked quietly. "Impossible to get an exact count with our damaged sensors, but I'm reading debris signatures from at least 5,000 distinct vessels. Captain, this was a battle, a massive battle, and based on the radioactive decay of the wreckage, it happened approximately 300 years ago." 300 years. That put it right in the time frame of the First Contact War, when humanity had exploded onto the galactic stage and fought a brutal conflict with the Rathani Imperium. Vex had read about that war in history files. The humans had won through sheer, stubborn determination and a willingness to try tactics that no other species would consider sane. "Can you identify any of the wrecks?" Vex asked. Zeeb worked his console, scanning through the debris field, pulling up hull configuration and design patterns. "Captain, I'm seeing predominantly human ship designs. These are old Terran military vessels. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers. There's even what looks like a dreadnought-class ship at the edge of the field." "A human mothball fleet," Kessa said, her voice filled with awe. She had joined them at the sensor station. "We found one of the old human battle groups from the war, the ones they left after the peace treaties." Vex felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had left these ships here, floating monuments to a war that had reshaped galactic politics. Every spacer knew the stories about human warships. They had been built with a brutality of purpose that made other species uncomfortable. Humans didn't just design ships to win battles. They designed them to make sure their enemies never wanted to fight again. "This could be valuable," Zeeb said excitedly. "The coordinates to a site like this would be worth a fortune to salvage companies or military historians." "It's worth nothing if we can't repair our ship and get out of here," Vex said firmly. "Kessa, what do we need to get mobile again?" The engineer consulted her datapad, her tentacles tapping through repair estimates. "At minimum, we need to replace the destroyed starboard engine. We need to patch the hull breaches properly, not just seal them. We need to repair the sensor array, the weapons systems, and about 30 other critical components. Captain, with what we have on board, we can maybe fix 20% of the damage. To do the rest, we'd need a full shipyard and 3 months of work." "So we're dead in the void," Vex said flatly. "Unless we can salvage parts from the derelicts," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Marcus Chen, the ship's human technician, standing in the bridge doorway. He was a compact man, built sturdy like most humans, with dark hair and the kind of hands that were always stained with grease and coolant. He'd been with the crew for 2 years, hired on at a station in the frontier territories. He fixed environmental systems, repaired lighting panels, and kept the ship's 1,000 small mechanical systems running. Vex had never really thought of him as anything special, just a reliable worker. Marcus walked onto the bridge, seeming unbothered by the emergency lighting and the smell of burned circuits. He looked at the sensor display showing the debris field, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Those are human ships out there," Marcus said. "Old Terran military hardware. I grew up in the outer colonies where we still use that generation of technology. I know those systems inside and out." "They're 300 years old," Kessa protested. "Derelict. Dead." "Dead, but not gone," Marcus replied. "Water resists space. Components decay without atmosphere. Yeah, a lot of it will be useless, but there's going to be plenty that's still good. And human military ships were built modular. They designed them so field crews could swap out damaged parts using whatever they had on hand. They called it kitbashing." "Kitbashing," Vex repeated the unfamiliar human word. "Taking pieces from different sources and making them work together," Marcus explained. "It wasn't pretty and it wasn't by the book, but it kept ships flying when there were no proper repair facilities. If I can get out into that debris field,
I can find parts we can use. Maybe not exact replacements, but things we can adapt. Vex looked at his damaged ship, then at the field of ancient wrecks, then back at Marcus. The human was serious. He actually thought he could salvage our situation using 300-year-old parts from dead ships. It's insane, Kessa said, echoing Vex's thoughts. It's human, which means it might be insane, but it also might work. Give me a scout bike and 6 hours. I'll find something useful. Vex considered the alternatives. They could sit here and wait for rescue that might never come. They could try to limp out of the system on minimal power and hope they didn't encounter any more pirates. Or they could trust a human technician to perform a miracle with scrap metal. Take the scout bike, Vex decided, but keep your comm open. If anything goes wrong, you get back here immediately. And Marcus, don't make me regret this.
Resurrection Protocol. 4 hours passed like 4 years. Captain Vex paced the bridge, his clawed feet clicking against the deck plating with each anxious step. Every few minutes he checked the chronometer, then glanced at the communications station where Zeeb monitored Marcus's vitals and location through the scout bike's transponder. "He's moving between wrecks," Zeeb reported for the 10th time. "Biosign stable. He's been inside that carrier-class vessel for the last 40 minutes. "What's he doing in there?" Vex muttered, more to himself than expecting an answer. Kessa looked up from her engineering console, her tentacles wrapped around a damaged power relay she was trying to repair manually. "Knowing humans, probably something we wouldn't approve of if we saw it." The comm crackled to life, making everyone on the bridge jump. Marcus's voice came through, slightly distorted by interference from all the metal debris surrounding them. "Captain, I found something. Actually, I found a lot of somethings. I'm loading up the bike now, but I'm going to need help hauling this stuff back. Can you send out the cargo shuttle?" "What did you find?" Vex asked, leaning toward the comm panel. "Better if I show you. Trust me, you're going to want to see this." "Oh, and Captain, I found a fleet tender. It's dead, no power, but it's got a functional dry dock and tool arrays. If we can maneuver the Fortune inside, we can use those tools for major repairs." Vex exchanged glances with Kessa. A fleet tender would be an incredible find. Those mobile repair ships had been designed to service entire battle groups in the field. "Send out the shuttle," Vex ordered. "Let's see what our human has scavenged." 2 hours later, Marcus returned with the cargo shuttle loaded to capacity. Vex met him in the main cargo bay, along with Kessa and half the engineering crew. When the shuttle's rear ramp lowered, Vex's 4 eyes widened in astonishment. The cargo hold was filled with components. Engine parts, power conduits, weapon systems, hull plating, and dozens of devices Vex couldn't immediately identify. Everything was old, covered in the fine dust of centuries, but Marcus had clearly chosen each piece with care. "This is a Mark 7 plasma distributor," Marcus said, hopping down from the shuttle and patting a cylindrical device. "It's 3 generations older than what we use, but the mounting points are compatible. I can adapt it to our systems with some rewiring." He moved to another pile of equipment. "These are hull reinforcement struts. Human ships use them for internal bracing. They're overbuilt by modern standards, which means they're perfect for shoring up our damaged sections." "What about engines?" Kessa asked, her tentacles twitching with professional interest despite her skepticism. "We need propulsion!" "That's the beautiful part," Marcus said, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "I found a Terran destroyer that's missing its entire forward section but has perfectly intact engine pods. They're not compatible with our mounts, but they don't need to be. I'm not going to try to install them the conventional way." "Then how?" Vex asked. Marcus grinned. "I'm going to kitbash them. We'll weld external mounting brackets, reroute the power feeds through auxiliary conduits, and control them using our existing navigation systems with a signal adapter I'll build from these old communication arrays. It won't be pretty, and it definitely won't pass any safety inspections, but it'll fly." "That sounds incredibly dangerous," Vex said. "It is," Marcus agreed cheerfully, "but it's also our only option. Captain, I spent 2 years working on frontier colony ships where we kept 40-year-old freighters flying with spare parts and hope. This isn't that different, just older." Over the next 8 hours, the crew of the Wandering Fortune witnessed something they would never forget. Marcus worked like a man possessed, directing the engineering team with absolute confidence. He had them cutting away damaged sections and welding in human-designed replacements. He rewired power systems, combining Corthan energy flow principles with human brute force engineering. He took components that had never been designed to work together and made them function through sheer determination and creative problem-solving. Kessa found herself grudgingly impressed. The human didn't just understand the mechanical principles. He understood how systems interacted, how to make compromises that maintained functionality while working around limitations. He explained everything as he went, teaching her crew techniques they'd never encountered in any engineering manual. Human ships were designed for adaptability, Marcus explained, as he soldered a connection between a 300-year-old human power coupling and a modern galactic standard energy conduit. We knew we'd be fighting far from home, with limited supplies. So we built everything to be modular, repairable, and compatible. We didn't care if it looked elegant. We cared if it worked. They maneuvered the Wandering Fortune into the fleet tender's dry dock, just as Marcus had promised. The ancient ship's tool arrays were unpowered but functional. Using portable generators from the Fortune, they activated the welding arms, cutting torches, and material fabricators. What would have taken weeks with hand tools took hours with the tender's equipment. Marcus attached the salvage engine pods to the ship's exterior using a framework of reinforcement struts. They looked like tumors growing from the Fortune's hull, asymmetric and ugly, but when he connected the power feeds and fired them up, they roared to life with the distinctive thrumming sound of human military engines. "We have propulsion," the helmsman reported from the bridge, his voice filled with disbelief. "Unconventional propulsion, but we're reading 70% of our original thrust capacity." Vex stood in the cargo bay, watching Marcus work on the final connections for their patched hull sections. The human was covered in grease, his clothes torn, his face streaked with grime, but he was smiling. "You did it," Vex said quietly. "You saved us. You saved my ship and my crew with nothing but old parts and human stubbornness. That's what we do, Captain. We make things work. We adapt. We kitbash solutions from whatever we have available. It's the human way." "Then the human way," Vex said slowly, "is remarkable." He paused, then made another decision. "Marcus Chen, I'm promoting you to Chief Engineering Officer, and I'm offering you a full partnership in this ship. We're not just a crew anymore. We're a team, and I want a human's perspective on every decision we make from now on." Marcus's grin widened. "Does this mean I get to keep installing weapons from the derelict field? Because I saw this really interesting torpedo system that I think I could adapt." The bridge crew laughed, and Vex found himself laughing with them. They had survived. More than survived, they had thrived, thanks to human ingenuity and the willingness to try something impossible. As the Wandering Fortune prepared to leave the system, her hull covered in mismatched patches and external weapons mounts that no engineer would approve of, Vex looked at her ship with new eyes. She wasn't pretty, she wasn't regulation, but she was alive and she was strong, and she was proof that sometimes the best solutions came from thinking like a human. "Set course to the nearest station," Vex ordered. "Let's go home." The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying with it a crew that had learned a valuable lesson. When you have a human on board, impossible is just another word for not yet.